My name is Lily. I never imagined myself in this situation. I never wanted to be the villain in someone else's love story, let alone my sister's. But love doesn't care about right or wrong. It doesn't care about consequences. It just happens. And sometimes it happens with the wrong person. My sister Emma and I were always close. She was older by 2 years and had always been my role model. Emma was the one who taught me how to do my makeup, the one who covered for me when I stayed out too late, and the one who wiped my tears after my first heartbreak. So when she introduced me to her boyfriend Mark, I was happy for her. Mark was everything she had always wanted: charming, kind, and incredibly good looking. He had dark hair that always fell slightly over his forehead and deep brown eyes that seemed to hold unspoken secrets. He treated Emma well, always surprising her with small gifts and thoughtful gestures. I was happy for her, truly. But things started to change, and I didn't even realize it at first. Mark and I got along easily, maybe too easily. We had the same sense of humor, the same taste in music, and could talk for hours without effort. It was harmless, just friendly banter. At least, that's what I told myself. But then there were the moments that felt different. The way his eyes lingered on me a little too long, the way he laughed at my jokes in a way that felt more intimate than casual, the way he would always find a reason to sit next to me when we were all together. I told myself I was imagining it, that it was all in my head, but deep down I knew. Then, the moment happened that changed everything. It was Emma's birthday, a night that should have been filled with nothing but happiness, laughter, and celebration. She had planned it weeks in advance, making sure everything was perfect. She reserved a table at her favorite restaurant, invited all her closest friends, and even bought a stunning new dress that made her glow with excitement. I stood next to her, genuinely happy for her, yet struggling with an overwhelming weight in my chest. Every time I looked at Mark, I felt it, that undeniable pull, that ache in my stomach that I knew shouldn't be there. He looked different that night. Maybe it was the dim lighting in the restaurant or the way he loosened his tie slightly, looking more relaxed than usual. Maybe it was the way his eyes kept flickering toward me when he thought no one was looking. Or maybe it was just my own guilt manifesting into paranoia. I'd convinced myself that whatever I was feeling was one-sided, that whatever I imagined in those stolen glances, those lingering moments, was all in my head. But deep down, I feared the truth. And that night, I got my answer. After dinner, we all returned to Emma's place for the after party. The house was filled with warmth, friends laughing, music playing, drinks flowing. It was exactly the kind of night she deserved. At some point, someone dimmed the lights and put on a slow song. Couples began moving to the makeshift dance floor in the living room, swaying together under the soft golden glow of the fairy lights. "Come on, birthday girl. Dance with me," Mark said, pulling Emma toward him with a wide grin. She laughed, wrapping her arms around his shoulders as they swayed to the music. I stood in the corner, watching them. I should have looked away. I should have been happy for them. But something about the way Mark's eyes drifted away from Emma and found mine made my stomach twist. And then, as if the universe was playing a cruel joke on me, Emma was pulled away by one of her friends. "I'll be right back," she said, pecking Mark's cheek before disappearing into the crowd. And suddenly it was just him and me. He turned to me, standing just a few feet away. For a moment, we just stared at each other. "Do you want to dance?" he asked. It was one question, just 4 words. But the way he said it, soft, hesitant, almost as if he knew he shouldn't be asking, sent a shiver down my spine. I should have said no. I should have walked away. But I didn't. I let him take my hand. His fingers were warm, firm as they wrapped around mine. He pulled me close, too close. I could feel his breath against my cheek, the faint scent of his cologne surrounding me. The music played on, slow and steady, but my heartbeat was anything but. We barely moved. It wasn't really a dance, more like an excuse to stand together, lost in something we couldn't explain. His hand was on my waist. Mine rested lightly on his chest. I could feel his heartbeat beneath my fingertips, rapid and unsteady, mirroring my own. And then his thumb brushed against my skin. Just a light touch, just a simple movement. But it was enough to make me look up. His eyes were burning into mine. And that's when he said it. I wish things were different. The words sent a wave of electricity through my entire body. A confession without saying too much. A betrayal without an action. I swallowed hard, trying to find my voice, tried to say something, anything that would break the moment. But then the worst thing happened. He leaned in. Not enough to kiss me, not enough to cross the final line, but enough that if I tilted my head just slightly, it would happen. I froze. For a moment, I thought I might actually let him do it. But then I heard Emma's voice. She was laughing in the kitchen, completely oblivious, completely trusting. Reality crashed down on me like a tidal wave. I pulled away, hard. Mark let go of me immediately, his hands dropping to his sides as if he had been burned. His eyes widened as if he had just realized what he had almost done. I'm sorry, he stammered. No, I whispered, shaking my head. This can't happen. I turned and walked away, my hands shaking, my breath unsteady. I pushed past the crowd, past the noise, past everything that had just happened. I needed air. I needed distance. But as I stepped outside into the cold night, one thought terrified me more than anything else. I wasn't just afraid of what had almost happened. I was afraid of how much I wanted it to happen. The party continued inside, but I couldn't go back in. My hands were trembling. My heart was still pounding. I had almost ruined everything. I kept telling myself that nothing had actually happened, that we hadn't kissed, that we hadn't done anything wrong. But intentions matter. And in that moment, Mark's intentions were clear. And so were mine. I stayed outside for what felt like forever, trying to calm my racing thoughts. By the time I walked back in, Mark was across the room, talking to one of Emma's friends, acting like nothing had happened. But he wasn't fooling me. Because I saw it in his eyes when he glanced my way. Everything had changed. There was no going back. From that night on, everything was different. I avoided him when I could, but when we were together, the air was thick with tension. Every glance, every touch. Even the way he said my name. It was all charged with something neither of us wanted to admit. Emma noticed nothing. She was too busy being in love, too busy planning their future. And I was drowning in guilt. I decided I needed to end it, to put as much distance between us as possible. But fate had other plans. It happened so fast. One evening, Emma had gone out of town for work, and Mark came over to drop off something she had forgotten. I told myself to keep things short, to avoid unnecessary conversation. But as I opened the door, I saw it in his eyes. That same desperate look. Lily, please, just tell me you don't feel it. I couldn't lie. Before I could say anything, he stepped closer, his fingers brushing against my hand. And then he kissed me. For a second, the world stopped. Then reality crashed down. I pulled away, gasping. Mark, no. This is wrong. I know, he whispered, his forehead resting against mine, but I don't know how to stop loving you. Tears filled my eyes. This wasn't fair. To Emma, to me, to any of us. You have to leave, I whispered. He hesitated but finally stepped back, nodding. I'm sorry, Lily. And then he was gone. I barely slept that night. My mind was racing. The guilt was unbearable. I had betrayed Emma, even if only in a moment of weakness. I couldn't keep this secret. The next morning, I told her everything. She stared at me, her expression unreadable. Then she laughed, a bitter, broken laugh. I knew something was off, she said, her voice shaking. I just didn't want to believe it. Emma, I never wanted. Stop. Her eyes filled with tears. I loved him, Lily. I reached for her, but she pulled away. I need time, she said. And then she walked away. Emma broke up with Mark that same day. I never spoke to him again. Emma and I didn't talk for weeks. It was the longest we had ever gone without speaking. The silence was unbearable, but I knew I had to give her space. Love doesn't always follow the rules. It doesn't always happen at the right time with the right person. But sometimes, love isn't enough. I lost Mark. But more importantly, I almost lost my sister. And no love is worth that. If you enjoyed this story, please like, subscribe, and share. Thank you for listening, and make sure you listen to the next love story.